Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Reliability BoomBox, proudly brought to you by Reliability Extranet Group of Companies. Here with my co-host, Seven, aka Peter Horsburgh. Nice to have you here again.
Thank you very much, sir.
So we're rolling on from our lovely 5-part series on 5 habits of an extraordinary reliability engineer. So we're up to habit 5. Talking about facilitate to implement.
Yes.
So we've covered off the first 4 habits, talked about the importance of them, and they're all an important step of the process. And to understand that, some parts you're good at and some parts you're not, and just where we need to understand and work to improve. So facilitate to implement. I have a feeling I'm going to like this one. I think it's in my wheelhouse, I would say. It's probably one of my strengths. But I'd like to understand, Seven, what your view on this. Why is it important to facilitate and implement? What's the basis of this in the book?
Very simple. You can't do it all. Yes. So if I backpedal a little bit, where we sit as reliability people, and I think I've drawn this before, we actually sit, I wouldn't say it's limbo land, but we actually join parts of the company together. So in the book, there's a few characters, and I'll draw my stick figure drawings to represent the few characters. But if this person here, my stick figure, is the reliability engineer, in the book, the reliability engineer's name is Gilbert. So if this is Gilbert, the reliability engineer, okay, he interacts essentially with 3 other different types of people in the organisation. Okay, so there's another person in the book, and he is Jackson, the tradie, or the craftsman. So his name is Jackson. And he's the tradie, as we call him, or tradesman in Australia, or craftsman in other areas of the world. But I'll stick with it because we're in Australia. I'll call it tradie. He's the tradie. Okay, so he's.
I love that you call him Jackson, the jack of all trades.
Jackson, yeah. Yep. All right, and I'm actually doing Jackson a little bit of injustice here. I'll just see if I can actually make him a little bit.
Oh, there we go.
I can make him a little bit bigger because he's a big buffy sort of dude in the book. And then so there is another person in the book, and that is Paul. Oops, sorry, I'm a little bit off my ball here. So Paul, and he is the manager. And then we have a lady in the book, and her name is Gertrude. And she is the technician. All right, or specialist would be another saying. Yeah. So Gilbert, the reliability engineer, right, doesn't do Jackson's job. Jackson's job is to actually fix the piece of equipment. Right?
Yep.
So he will do what is needed. He'll follow someone's instructions on what needs to be done with the piece of equipment. If it's broken, he will fix it. Yeah? Okay? Yep. He'll do the maintenance and stuff like that. Okay? But the key point there is that Gilbert doesn't do that work. Jackson does.
Yeah.
Jackson does the actual hands-on work. Okay. When it comes to actually making technical decisions about the piece of equipment, because I think Rod Moore said this, it's all about the plant, right? It's all about the plant. All right. So if I draw a piece of plant here, righto, whatever that looks like, sort of looks like a train. It's all about the plant. Okay. And we've got all these different people interacting with the plant. Now, one of the persons or personality types that interact or are involved with the plant is the technical specialist. The technical specialist, Gertrude, in this case, knows all the technical details of that plant. Okay?
Yeah.
So if there is a decision about a change that is required on the plant, Gertrude is the one that will do that, not the reliability engineer. Okay? Because we are generalists. Okay?
Yep.
We've got to know a little bit about everything, but we don't know, the technical detail of how that plant actually works or should be run. Okay, or any changes made to that plant. Okay,
Yep.
we don't say that instead of you can take the M10 bolts out, put M12 in there. That's not sort of the decisions that we make. Okay, righto. So finally, the third personality that we deal with is Paul the manager. Okay, so Paul the manager holds the dollars.
Yep.
Righto. He's the one that makes the decision around budgets.
Yep.
Okay. Or finds the extra money, or the one that you've got to convince to get the money, if you want to call it that. Okay. So the reliability engineer doesn't hold the money or make decisions about the money. Okay, we can certainly make a business case to convince people or convince Paul that he needs to spend the money, but he needs to make that decision, not us. We make the recommendation through using habits 1, 2, 3, and 4. Interestingly.
Funnily enough.
Yeah, funnily enough. Okay, we've identified the problem, we've understood the problem, we've questioned, and now we're making decisions with data. Those decisions typically go to Paul, they will go to Gertrude, and Jackson will get involved in it as well. Why? Because he's a stakeholder.
Yes.
Right? Yep. Okay, once the decision is made, okay, so Paul says, yes, let's go and implement this change, Gilbert. Okay. Jackson is the one that's most probably going to do the change, except for maybe contractors managed by Gertrude. Okay. So, as you can see, the reliability engineer essentially has had a two-way street with all of these different people to get things to change within the organisation. Okay? The reliability engineer is the catalyst to this.
Yep.
Hence, we facilitate change by talking to all of the different players. I'll just change my thing here. We talk to all of these different players to get things to happen. Right. We don't actually make the change ourselves. We facilitate the change. Okay.
Yep.
Hence the name. Hence the name of Habit 5. Facilitate to implement. Okay. And we're always talking about implementation of changes on the plant.
Awesome.
That's
yeah, I think you've really cleared that up, like the reasons why. You certainly covered, and it's a very key point. And I believe I was right. This is an area that I'm very passionate about, as we've talked about in other podcasts. And I think it touches on that skill that you've mentioned before in this little series, the softer issue, the softer skill of engineering, which is the ability to communicate to and from. And it's always been something I've really been passionate about is learning to communicate in a two-way fashion with the managers, with the dollar stakeholders, let's call them that, the stakeholders that hold the purse strings, to then be able to communicate with the stakeholders that have the tools in their physical hands, and then to also communicate with the stakeholders that, as you've said, are the subject matter experts or the technical specialists for that piece of equipment. And it is important that we can have those conversations in all patterns. And I think it's also important that their input is considered and respected. I feel often, and I've sat in environments where, as Jackson the tradie, or Gertrude even, I've sat in those positions, and the reliability engineer or another engineer or the manager will start telling me what I need to do. It's like, well, do you want my input and do you want my help or not? Because, like, for instance, you might be told to go and change something. Jackson might come and say, well, that's actually not going to work because it's not physically possible in our environment. And people will then go, well, why? And you need to actually have that input over just being told, no, go and put that on there and figure it out. And it not working. So
exactly. And that's part of the skill of the job. Now, I was just thinking about, like, if you are a small organisation and you don't have reliability engineers, who fills this role? I can answer that question. It's the maintenance manager. All right, if you haven't got a reliability engineer, all the maintenance managers that are out there, this is you. Yes, and coming back to it, we've got all of these stakeholders, right? Oh, sorry, not Gilbert. All of these stakeholders in this in this circle of influence. And remember that us as reliability engineers have a circle of influence over all of these people. Okay. This is our circle of influence. This is where we influence people to get things done or facilitate with, okay, I use the word facilitate, but it's part of facilitating is obviously influencing, right? And we need to do that. We need to do that. Why? Because we want these people to say yes. If we've discovered a problem in habit 1, we understand the problem. Okay. We've questioned what we're doing about it and we've got some data, right? We want to work with these people to get them to say, yes, we need to do this. And I'm not talking about just one of them saying yes, as you just mentioned. We need all 3 of them to say yes.
And if for any reason one of them says no or questions, it's very important that we listen to that and that we understand where they're coming from.
Absolutely. And each one of them is going to have a subtle different point of view too.
Exactly.
I think you're going, where you going there? Sorry to interrupt.
No, you were bang on it. There's going to be a subtle difference. There's going to be a subtle difference point of view. And by getting them all to say, yes, that's the best thing that we should do, or yes, that's what they should do. And in a lot of cases, sometimes Jackson or Paul might go, well, I don't really know because I don't know the machinery. If you say, yes, it is, and it's within our budget, okay, we'll do that. Or Jackson might say, well, I've tried everything that I knew in the past, but what you're saying makes some kind of sense, so let's give it a go. It's still a yes. And it's still a consideration that they've actually looked at it and you've actually had a discussion, had a roundtable implement. So we can agree that it's a very important thing, and we can agree that that's an important role for the reliability engineer. And as I said, it's certainly one of my favorites. Though, what are some of the key ways to facilitate this? What steps or little tidbits can you give as suggestions on to do this well, especially if you're coming from someone that is more hard skill orientated, and this is something
the $50 million question. I love it. Okay, I draw these 4 people, right? So we've got Jackson, Gertrude, Paul, and we've got Gilbert, the reliability engineer Okay. I'm gonna lead with a statement or a question. Better words. What's in it for me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's in it for me especially applies to this person here.
Yeah.
Right? Maintenance is essentially an overhead in a business.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a direct revenue earning function. It's there because you have to have it. Okay?
Yes.
It's a cost center to most organizations. I've heard people try to put some spin on it and that will earn you revenue indirectly. Okay? Indirectly.
Mm-hmm.
And I've worked with some big corporates around the world, and yes, if you can prevent failures, you'll get better availability and you'll earn more revenue because you're producing more. However, that is 2 steps away from the dollar sign.
Yes.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So Paul's a different story. We're going to talk to Paul in that way. However, Jackson, right, is the person that's implementing this essentially 2 steps away from your primary goal of earning revenue, right?
Yeah.
He's inside the cost center, right?
Mm-hmm.
Things go bad, okay? Jackson will still go and fix it. That's his job.
Yeah.
What's in it for me? Essentially, if you want to convince Jackson to work with you and Ron Moore talks about a bar wave, you've got to create them to do extra things, okay, over and above what's in it for me. You are all about trying to make his job easier.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yep.
So removing problems, okay, we've had a reliability issue with this piece of plant. Jackson's gone out, fixed it 5 times. He's been called in, all that sort of stuff. Okay, all of these unplanned failures, making his job easier, okay, from Jackson's point of view, because, Jackson wants to obviously go there and do a good job, right now.
Yep.
Earn his money, go home, not have to worry about work. So if we can make that job easier for him, so he goes in, does his job, goes home, there's no call-outs, the work itself is easier, the machine just keeps running type thing. That's where we want to be with Jackson. Okay? Gertrude, different story. But again, what's in it for me is the fundamental question. But okay, with Gertrude, righto, it's all about, it's sort of like helping Gertrude think that it was her idea, that this change is good. Now, she's got to sign off on the change. So if you come up with the idea of how to fix the machine, right, and say, Gertrude, we need to do this, that's the wrong approach. It's more about, Gertrude, what if we did this? And then Gertrude has a chance to go away and think about that, because she's an engineer and that's what we do. Well, reliability engineers think a lot too, but the technical engineers do a lot of thinking, but in a different way.
Yes.
They're thinking about, how can I maximize the performance out of this thing? Okay? Righto? They own the change, not the reliability engineer. They own the change. If the change doesn't work, usually it'll come back to the technical specialist. So by all means, suggest the change. Do not tell the technical people, this is the change that we need to do. That's not going to go. That's not going to fly. I can tell you that now because I've done it. So it's all about suggesting changes. And guess what? The best way to do that is with habit 4, decide with data. They get that. So if you've done habit 1 and involved Gertrude, and again, Gertrude would be because if you're identifying where the problems are on her machine, and she can see this coming, she will be there with bells on in habit 2 for understanding. She'll be there to answer all the questions on habit 3.
Yep.
right? She might even help you with habit 4.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So then, facilitate to implement. Gertrude's in a great position to come up with the solutions.
Yeah.
Okay. Rather than, because she's been involved in the whole of the habits, right, that you facilitate. Okay. So you're the one that starts. The reliability one is the engineer that determines where the reliability problems are in your organization. All about habit 1. We're constantly identifying areas of improvement when it comes to reliability.
Mm-hmm.
So keep Gertrude, facilitate. Okay, keep Gertrude in the loop of that. You're going to succeed. Okay,
yep.
with personalities like that. Paul, let's talk about Paul. Obviously, dollars. Okay, this is where you pull your dollars out. Gertrude's going to have a dollar thing as well. Okay, she's going to have a dollar spin. But what we need to do here is people return on investment. Okay, if you're going to ask Paul to invest some money, you need to show a return. You need to show that the change that you're suggesting is going to work with a high degree of confidence without going into the technical stuff, because that's Gertrude's job. Okay, you'll need to say something like, Gertrude has checked this over and has confirmed that this is going to work. We are going to see a return on investment within, I suggest you try and keep the number under 4 years. All right.
Months would be good, but under
months
4
is
years.
good. Months is the shorter the better. But anything more, like anything longer than 4 years, it's going to be. I don't think it'll fly. We need to show that return on investment, so it's going to involve dollars, and hopefully we see availability, which is our prime one that we currently chase. Is we see an availability go up. And they can attribute that we can attribute that directly to revenue. Right, so for this dollars here that I'm about to invest, I'm going to see extra revenue because I'm going to increase the availability of equipment, and Gertrude's saying this is going to work. What's Paul going to say? Yes, let's do that. So there's some simple tips.
There's some simple tips. There's some simple tips. I think they're great tips. I think it is very important that, like you've pointed out, the two things. One, you want to make Jackson's job easier. It might not be straight up easier to begin with. For some tradesmen, it might be that you want to give them a challenge and you want to include them in part of the challenge, not just be told you change this bolt. Right?
Exactly. Yep.
But if you
being involved in each of the habits.
Being involved in each of the habits, take him along the way. One of the best reliability engineers I saw on one of the sites that I worked at was very good at just going down and constantly talking to the traders. Like every day he was down there having a chat, getting along, doing this, and having a word with them, getting their input, getting their thoughts, getting their ideas. The same with the technical expert or the subject matter expert, whichever way you want to put it. But Gertrude, I really like the way you also said is make it feel like it's their idea. Even if you have the suggestion and the idea, allow them to come up with it. And I think it's one of the most important things. You can even do that with Jackson in a sense. If you're having a chat with Jackson and Jackson goes, I've got a really good idea, listen to it. And take him on the journey. If he has an idea and goes, hey, Gilbert, we got this problem. I've been called in 5 times to do this. I've been doing this, but I've been looking at it. I think if we do this, what do you reckon? Take him on the journey through the other 4 habits and walk down the path with him, with Gertrude, to show Gertrude, show Jackson the way, the path that happens, and help him understand, help him feel like he's owning the problem and he's taking ownership in that role. And then help him see that it's important that you get the response from Gertrude. And he gets to own that as well. And yes, I think it is very important that with Gertrude that you do get them to own that and take responsibility in sort of making that decision, because they are the kind of the ones that are in the end responsible. And obviously it's always important that whenever you do make a change, that you understand what the return on investment is.
Yes. So now we're in the pools.
Yeah. So then you're in the pools world. And I think if you make sure that you do all other 4 steps along the way when it comes that time to facilitate, obviously Paul will start to see what's going on. You obviously identify the problem, and you see that he can see that you're working with these other people. And like you said, it might be simple. Well, availability will go up because we're mitigating this constant issue, which brings availability down. You're talking in the terms that he relates to.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
It doesn't matter which bolt you put in, whether it's M10 or M12. It's like, what's going to keep it running? Yeah. And it's understanding their language.
Yes.
Now, you and I we met at university, funnily enough, doing a master's degree.
Yes.
And following that enjoyable few years and talking to lots of different people and meeting you, I was managing a company, and someone sat down and talked to me, and I don't know where it was, but they're like, "Oh, your MBA, did you get much out of it?" And I said, well, to be honest, I think one of the biggest things that I got was now I understand what all the academic people talk like, and I understand the language they use. So for me, going and talking to the managers or the CFOs, and it just came to me, it's like I'd go and sit with the CFO, and all of a sudden I understood EBITDA, I understood profit and loss, I understood balance sheets, and I could talk in their language.
Yes.
So the reason I bring that up is when you look at Paul, who is the manager, he's obviously generally talking about return on investment. And even if he is just from a trade background and engineering background, that might make it easier in the conversation, but he's still going to have an operational focus, like what's bringing in the dollars.
A business perspective.
Business perspective, yes. Yeah. So, yes, I think it is really important, and I think they're great steps, great things to bring people along the journey. And I love the way you started. It's like, we can't do everything. And I know if some people are going, well, I'm running my own little 2-bot business down here. I'm the maintenance manager, the production manager, the operations manager, and the maintenance technician, and the technical expert. So who am I going to call? Well, have a look in your organization and see who else is there. Even ask an apprentice, if you have an apprentice. Even ask the operators, when you're there. Maybe reach out to someone else in another organization, someone else that has similar machines. Contact the suppliers and original manufacturers of the machine. Talk to them as well.
They're going to be one of these. They're going to be Gertrude.
Exactly. They're going to be Gertrude. And that was one of the things that I wanted to bring. Well, why we wanted to bring this podcast to everyone was that we could actually give some insightful information to some of those people, to some of those smaller players, that then might encourage them to pick up the phone and ring Johnny down the road and get some advice or get an idea on how to fix something they might be challenged with. So I think it is really important. I knew I would love this habit. I think, the importance of covering all bases, learning to talk, learning to include everyone is a very important thing. Now, a quick question. How will you know that you've facilitated well?
Okay, 2 ways.
2 ways?
2 ways. maybe more than 2 ways, but 2 ways. Okay. 1, the changes get done.
Yep.
Okay. So stuff
Mhm.
happens. So when changes happen, it's going to be in 3 basic areas: plant, people, or process.
Yep.
Okay. So 1,
Mhm.
the change gets done. Okay. If you're facilitating well, your data will change.
Mhm.
So we're back to habit 4. Okay. And I think it was the last podcast we did. I think I talked about this, where we're analysing some data and a problem manifested itself. They formed a focus group, and then they started seeing improvement over time. So they could say, we formed the focus group here. We started working on it. There was a little bit of a delay, and then they started to actually measure the improvement. Okay? They measure the improvement. Now, that's from a technical point of view, right? So we know we get things done, plant, people, process. Okay?
Mhm.
We start to see improvement. So I'm now talking about hard changes, right? The hard side of things. We'll see,
Sure, yeah.
if you're facilitating well, you will see the hard numbers change and things starting to happen.
Yeah.
On the softer side,
Mhm.
what you will notice, or what I noticed, was that people from each of those different 3 areas of the business start coming knocking on your door and asking questions.
Yeah.
Okay. So for those that, and this is one of the stories in the book, okay, for those that are highly technical type people and you're happy to sit in the office and do technical stuff, and you go in there and you do your technical stuff and no one comes and knocks on your door to ask a question.
Yep.
That's a flag that you're doing something not right. You're doing something wrong, because you should have Paul's, the Jacksons, and the Gertrudes coming and asking you questions and your opinion on stuff.
Yes.
And they may have some insights to say, hey, Gilbert, I believe there's a problem here. Could you check it out?
Mhm.
Are we actually seeing a problem in our data?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's how you know when you're software side that you're doing it well.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Simple measure.
Yes, you can measure. You can, and I totally agree. And I think that is probably why one of my favorite roles in industry was that of the reliability engineer. When you're getting people to come back, you realize that you're doing a good job. And the Jacksons are coming and say, hey, I've got this, I brought this up, we're working on this problem, this is what we find. When the technical experts going, oh, yeah, this is really good, this is what we need to do, and then this is where it's at. And then when the Pauls and managers are going, I love the results you're getting, and yeah, or even just going, hey, you did some really good stuff over here with this problem, but I want to know about this, or what are your thoughts on this? Should be a lot of conversation.
How do we get an extra 5% availability out of that?
Yeah. Right, you've got it
That's
up
what
to
they'll
85, so how do we get it to 90?
90.
Oh,
how do we get it to 90? Radio.
Yeah.
And then you go, the answer is, how big's your wallet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, another question quickly popped into my head, and it's kind of a little bit loaded because I feel like I have the answer. Actually, maybe I'll just tell you what I think. I was thinking, if there were to be a 6th habit, if there was to be one more little step, something left to do. All right, so you've done habit 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You've got to this point where you can now facilitate it to implement. You've got a little bit of proof that, yep, okay, I'm doing my job. People are starting to knock. The data seems to be improving. what would be the next thing? Because obviously we're not going to just sit back on our coattails. We're still going to be busy. We're still going to be doing everything that we have to do, and probably dealing with a lot more problems because Paul's throwing more at you. But what I believe, and you can tell me if you think I'm off track, I believe the 6th step would be to review, to constantly review.
I'd argue that's habit 1.
That's
because you're constantly identifying,
and that's the point.
Yeah.
So I say review because it brings you back full circle.
It brings you back to habit 1 because you're identifying, and if you're reviewing that and you've succeeded, that problem simply goes away in habit 1.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and when I say review, like if you throughout this series and a lot of the podcasts, we tend to specify a problem. Or if you've got a problem, these are the steps that you're going to take. You're going to go identify the problem. You're going to understand. You're going to just decide with data, and so forth. Facilitate, implement, and get it done. It's easy to say, okay, we'll get it done, and something's happened. The guys are going to fix it, and it's over there. I've got this problem now to fix. But I say that if we then review and make that sort of 6th step and as a reminder, this is kind of like the hidden little step, is a reminder to go back and go, okay, how did we go with this problem? Did we fix it? Did we get the return on investment that we were kind of looking for? Has our availability gone up?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Data.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes. Sorry. I'd actually, now where you're coming from here, I'd actually, that's like what we talked about in one of the previous podcasts, is celebrate wins, which is one of the actions inside habit number 5.
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So celebrate wins. That's actually that as a part of habit 5. That's part of one of the things that you do is celebrate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you'll need to have that information to do that, because you got to be celebrating something.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And going back, and I think, and you're right. Like it should be a part of habit 5 is you facilitate, implement, and you create the change, you have the change, and then you check in and make sure that it does work and that you review the process. So, going back over the data, keeping it live, and then closing it off. I think closing it off and knowing that, okay, we've definitely solved that problem in that space for that particular thing. We can move on to another one. It's good to keep them it's in the memory bank or logged somewhere that you actually go, hang on, this happened once before. Like, what did we do on that machine when we had that problem there? Or how can you, even in the review or celebrating the wins process, you can look at, can this be, transformed onto another project, onto another machine? Can we do the same thing in a different area to get a similar result?
Yes.
And before the problem comes up.
Yeah, exactly. And now we're talking proactive.
Yes.
Now we're talking proactive, which is like the holy grail of all maintenance. You don't want to be doing reactive maintenance. That's the worst. You want to be doing proactive maintenance. So you're proactively changing things. And now we're in the realms of what Rod Moore is saying is make things better. When you pull a machine apart, make things better. We learnt something over here on machine A, so now we're just applying it to machine B because we're making things better. Yeah.
And there's still, and whilst we talk, I know we talk a lot about machines, there's still the fact that you're still going to have to be a little bit reactive. Things are still going to go wrong. Things are still going to go bang on occasion, and you'll have to figure it out. There's still going to be the scheduled maintenance, so to speak. The general lube changes and things like that we have to do. And you'll do them at specific times, so you're not doing them too frequently and not frequent enough. There's that lovely juggle that we've talked about before. Though, as you said, when we do actually make an improvement, and an opportunity to spread that improvement across to the rest of the fleet or to other similar machines or areas, then it's a good thing to do. And as you said with Ron Moore, then we're making improvements. Then we're actually improving the machine.
And there's another reason to celebrate success.
Exactly.
We have prevented a problem.
Yeah. Awesome. Well,
love it.
I feel like that's a good wrap up of habit 5.
Yeah.
Facilitate to implement. I thank you for your lovely drawings and explanations. Yeah, I think it is certainly, like I said, and I keep saying it's one of my favorite aspects of the habits and of the role and in that space. And it does take a little work at times to, as we've discussed, like be on the softer side of the engineering. But I just like to remind people that everyone has a view, everyone has a different perspective, and it's worth listening to.
Everyone's had a different experience.
Yeah.
Everyone. That's what makes us individuals, and we are all individuals.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Awesome. Thanks again,
Righto.
Seven.
No worries, mate. Thank you.
Out there, smash the like button.
We've got to tell everyone the news.
The book is available online.
The book globally.
Anywhere in the world you order it, it will come to you.
Through you're going to say it, or am I going to? Yes, Reliability Web. Uncle Terry and Annie Wara and the team at Reliability Web have now taken the 5 habits, made it better, and it's now available globally through Reliability Web. So I think, if you typed into Google Reliability Web, you will certainly find Reliability Web.
we will add it down in the show notes in the comments, so you will find it. But yeah, subscribe, give us some feedback. We're certainly happy to hear and happy to have a chat. If you have some inputs, or if you think of something else that we missed, we certainly would love to hear it.
Or you want us to talk about something specific, an experience that we've had between the two of us, because I'm mechanical, Dane's electrical.
Yes.
And you guys want us to talk about some sort of a subject on this podcast, we're willing for that as well.
We're willing to have a chat and give our views. So thanks again, everyone. Have a good day, evening, night, whatever it is for you, and we'll catch you soon.